Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today on Collection Lessons, I want to talk about total cost. This is part of my Collection Lessons series. Anything I say on this channel is not anything advice, and let's get going. So what I want to talk about total cost is the total cost of something. I know that I'm going to be setting this up basically to talk about how the total cost of housing in another video here, up and coming. I talk about the total cost of the mortgage plus property taxes, house insurance, the whole package of how much a house actually costs is definitely going to be in another video. But in this video, I want to talk about those hidden costs that people don't think of when they do certain things or go certain places or have certain things. And yeah, let's get into it. So basically, the first one that I want to talk about is a restaurant. So people, when they go to a restaurant, I'll just call it rest, just make it simple on you guys. When people go to a restaurant, they generally order food. They sit down, they order food, maybe a drink or two, and then included with that, most people that I know anyway in Canada here, they tip, right? They give the waitress, waiter a tip, and then that tip gets either distributed to the back house, is what they call it, the back of the house of the restaurant, or the the waiter or waitress, they have the tip for themselves. They keep the tip, that type of thing. So when people go into, look at a menu, they'll look at a menu and be like, oh, look, a $20 burger. They're like, a $20 burger. Okay, yeah, I could go for a $20 burger. And then they go have the burger, and then the bill ends up being like $30. And they're like, wow, how did the bill go from 20 that you got suckered into the restaurant to go to this to this? Well, you forgot to mention that, in this restaurant, because it's a fancy restaurant, fancy burger, there's a forced 18% gratuity, right? And you're like, wow, that's expensive. Well, that's generally, like, most people tip about 10%, whatever, and most of the time it's optional. Sometimes it's forced, but they sucker you into this, the $20 burger. There's no way that you could get the $20 burger for $20. You had to get it with the gratuity, and then you also had to get it with the taxes, right? There's no way to avoid the taxes on that $20 burger, because of course they don't include the prices. Why would they include the prices of taxes? Why would they put the total cost of how much this burger is going to cost you? They wouldn't, because it doesn't sucker people in. Don't be a sucker, because you're going to get sucked in. But yeah, generally, if you go have that $20 burger, you're like, wow, the 18%, the taxes, the, I don't know, COVID fee, if there's that, or some other junk tax, or, that type of thing, where you get nickeled and dimed, and basically your bill is now 50% more. You're like, what? How does that work? But you pay it anyways, and then you go home, right? Isn't that weird? People don't look at a total cost of how much that burger is actually costing. They look at the menu and they're like, oh yeah, I want that because it looks like $20, and that's how much I value a burger at. But there's a lot more to it. And if it's forced, if these things are forced, even if they're not forced, and you volunteer your money to a tip, which I agree that it should happen in some sense, maybe. But it's like, you need to look at how much that's going to cost you. How much did it cost you to get to the restaurant? Did you remember that part? How much in gas, right? This is before you even get to the $20 burger. How much in gas did that cost you? How much in time did that cost you? What about your insurance for the car and whatever else? Like, all the things to get that $20 burger. It's not a $20 burger anymore, is it? Right? It's not even 30. It's 30 plus, everything to get there, the babysitter or whatever, and then getting home. You gotta get home, right? There's a lot to it, right? So the total cost should include, this entire trip is probably $50 for this one burger that's cost 20 bucks or whichever, and included in the $20 is somebody's time that you're paying for to get that burger, and then all the products and stuff that's in there as well that person's preparing for. There's tons of things going on here. That's why you need to look at the total cost. You can't look at a menu and be like, oh, a $20 burger here and a $20 burger 6 hours away drive. They're not the same, right? It's not the same. There's more gas and time involved to get to the burger that's $20 or even $18 6 hours away, right? That's the total cost of how much does that burger cost, right? Another one that I recently ran into is a phone bill. So I'm in the process of switching phone plans and everything, and during that process, I got to see how much a phone plan actually costs. They're like, oh, here's a 60 plan, a 90 plan. And I was like, I want the 15 plan. I want the $15 plan. So $15 plan, what they don't tell you, oh, that doesn't include, caller ID. That's another $8. So why would you offer like a plan. Sure, I could not get the caller ID, but how many people are gonna be like, no, I don't want the caller ID? Like, it's kind of implied that you almost need caller ID, especially in this day and age where people are, calling and texting and everything. And it's like, well, then it's not a $15 plan. If you cheapen out the plan and then you have to get all these add-ons, the total cost goes up. Plus the 911 fee, which I think was like $2 to $3, somewhere in that range, right? $2 to $3. This is kind of included. Plus, after all that, taxes, and some carrier charge that they have to do that's like 50 something cents, and network improvement something, because they can't declare the profits on this they're charging you here, but they gotta be like, well, you're improving them, whatever, and then in the end it's gonna be like $27. And you're like, well, how did that work out? I wanted the $15 plan, but now I'm at 27. And sure, I could have nicked the caller ID, but that's basically like, most people get that nowadays, and I did want it for what I'm doing with it, with my phone. But this $2 to $3 that I can't avoid of 911, and I never dial 911, but I need to have the subscription to pay for 911 if I ever need it, plus the tax, plus some sort of network improvement thing, plus this and that. There's the total cost of what the phone actually costs, the plan actually costs. The $15 plan with, appropriate add-ons, we'll call it, ends up being about $27. Sure, it's better than what I was paying, over $100, but you get my point. Like, I'm almost doubling the price of my plan that was on the menu, the $15 menu plan, just like the $20 burger plan. It's the same thing. It's the total cost. It should be included. Other things like utilities, they're like utilities are like, oh, for natural gas in my house, this is about $25 minimum. I can't, if I turn off my gas, I still have to pay this, right? It's kind of a joke in my opinion. It's like, sure, if I turn it on and it's there, that's great, but why is it costing $25 if I'm not even using it? That's a very unfortunate mandatory subscription that I have to have. And during the summer months, I don't really put on the heat, but it's there just in case. And it's just kind of ridiculous, because if I use it, then it's usage. Should be what I pay for. But no, I gotta pay usage. There's an A in there. I gotta pay for this plus the usage of me actually using it. It's also ridiculous, right? So the total cost of having a utility is usage plus the minimum cost, or whatever they call that. It's like maybe some utility improvement cost or some garbage in there. Another thing that's totally outside of normal everyday thing is usually like something like an online game. So we're just gonna call this game, and look at the total cost of how much a game costs you, let's say, right? So I remember playing some really good games back in the day, Battlefield, or everyone's playing Call of Duties or whatever, right? And those generally are like a $60 game, and you're like, okay, cool, that's $60. That thing is costing me $60, right? Usually that's $1 You know how much time that I spent playing games back when I was like a teenager and a little older, even with friends and everything? Sure, I enjoy playing video games with friends and I really like it, but how much time did I play by myself, or did I play just to eat the day away, eat the night away till the next day came, and my whole weekend's gone? I'm spending, let's say, 20 hours a week playing video games that really aren't doing much. And sure, I enjoy entertainment, and there's a time for that, and there's a budget for that, like a time budget for that. But that game, that $60 game could cost me 200 hours of my life. And it might be enjoyable hours, sure, but it's costing you more than $60, right? There's the time to get the $60, so the T before the 60, that gives you the 60. That could be back in the day when I was making, $10, $15 an hour. There's, 4 hours of work. So it's 4 hours to get this game to burn me 200 more hours, right? And it's just interesting when you think of it in that aspect. The total cost of the game is $60, the 4 hours of time, and then the 200 hours after, right? So when people say, oh, the game's only $60, well, it's $60 plus a time commitment to learn it, to figure it out, to actually get good at it, to actually enjoy it. There's things like that, right? Some games, they have subscriptions. It's $60 plus $5 a month. And you're like, if you want to play this game to get any good, you got to, of course, use the best amount of hours you can during the time that you pay for the subscription of it. There's a total cost. And where this is kind of going to go and play into in another video of me talking about housing, there's more to it than a $1,500 mortgage. There's, if you're comparing rent to mortgage, there's different total costs, right? The total cost of a mortgage and the total cost of this. If you're looking at the numbers, well, 1,500 is 1,500, but there's a cost of ownership, of house ownership, where you pay for things that I don't pay for if I rent. And people will be like, well, they just look at the menu item. They're like, well, it's a $20 burger. It's a $20 burger here and $20 burger there. Or they're like, oh, but I'm paying $18 for the burger. And it's like, yeah, plus 6 hours of your life to get there, right? To get to another city to, pay that. There's a total cost there. You can't just say, well, I get my burgers for cheap, or I can't, it's, if you're paying 20 and they're near you and you're not paying 6 hours of time, this is probably the cheaper option, the one that looks more expensive. That's what I wanted to share in this video. Always look at the total cost of how much it gets how much it is to get that item, and then how much it actually is with all the hidden costs in there of, why don't they include the 18% gratuity actually on the menu, right? Why don't they include it on this from the beginning? Why do they hide all this stuff? Why does a $15 phone plan end up being $30? Why do they hide it? It's annoying. Stop it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with this video. Look at a total cost of things, because things are costing you way more than you think. And when you just think of every single item in your house, you just start to realize what you need to cut and what you need to keep. So I wanted to share that with this video. Thanks, and talk soon.